7:14, I'd like to call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? If you need a
Trustee
moment,
Eater?
please take your time.
I do. I'm just trying to get Trustee Wesley in. Just a moment. Okay. Trustee Eater? Trustee Enya?
Here.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Here.
Trustee Straw?
Here.
Trustee Taglia?
Here.
Trustee Wesley has not joined yet, and then President Stamen.
Here.
Thank you. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, and I do think that we have a change to the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to move to table item I and move it to the September 1st meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, very good. And Clerk Waters, would you please take, that's all in favor, right? I don't need anything more than that. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed it.
So the agenda has been approved, but anybody waiting for item I, that will be heard on September 1st.
Trustee
And
Wesley's here.
entertain a motion to approve minutes from the June 16th and June 23rd regular meeting of the Village Board. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. And do we have any non-agenda public comment this evening? Or did I do all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. If you'll please proceed.
Barbara? Barbara C.
Okay. Good evening, son. Good evening, everybody. My name is Barbara Samaglio. I'm a resident of North Kenilworth in Oak Park, and I'd like to address the process on deciding about changes to the zoning laws and express support for a binding referendum. As our communities evolve and populations change, we must be open to reevaluating the regulations guiding development and changes to our housing stock so that the needs of our community are best served. The question of how to decide whether to change the current regulations is one that can affect both current and future residents. We have a mix of people in Oak Park who have lived here for a long time, and we have newer residents. Many residents are unfamiliar with how zoning affects their property and neighborhood. However, the built environment affects us all. Many people say that actions of the government are difficult to understand. I'm a career state government employee. I've worked in 3 different states, and I've learned over time how important it is for the public to be educated on the various issues that are legislated or regulated. And that means doing it in a clear and transparent way in simple language that everybody can understand. That also involves, obviously, how housing is zoned. And then I believe that the voters in Oak Park deserve a chance to voice their opinion by voting on a referendum. This is an issue that is bigger than one board and will have impact for years to come if changes are made. I presume that prior to a referendum, there would be public information via hearings and other communication. As a start, education. I would suggest that the village bring knowledgeable people in to educate people about housing costs, what it takes to build affordable housing, whether single family or multifamily. With increases in the price of materials, the costs have escalated sharply. People also need to understand the issues involved in demolition. What is required if someone wants to demolish an existing structure and build new? What is the process? What is the approximate length of time? What is the requirement for public input? Very few people are familiar with all of the elements that a change in zoning would really impact. It would be very helpful for the village to create a short document that summarizes the key issues that need to be addressed if the village were to change the zoning regulations. It is essential that people who vote on a referendum have facts, along with various opinions. While there is certainly emotion involved in zoning issues, technical and practical questions need to be the foundation for any changes. What is the experience of builders, homeowners? That me? Okay, I have one more sentence.
Okay, thank you.
What is the experience of builders, homeowners, and neighbors who have been involved in new construction, especially smaller multifamily buildings? What can we learn from the experiences of other towns about how to build and keep costs affordable? These are topics on which information needs to be presented prior to any referendum or vote of the trustees so that people can understand the facts on which to base an opinion. Thank you for listening to testimony.
Thank you.
Kimberly, S?
More of the same, I'm afraid. You all know what's coming. My name is Kimberly Smith, president of Smith Architecture here in Oak Park. I've practiced residential architecture for almost 35 years, and the bulk of my practice is here. I also serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Architecture teaches you an important lesson. The success of a project is determined long before the first shovel goes into the ground. It begins with the framework. We study the zoning ordinance. Only then do we begin to draw. Good planning deserves that same discipline. No one questions Oak Park's desire to be an inclusive, welcoming, and diverse community. Those aspirations are part of who we are, and they are values that I share. The question before us is not whether we should pursue those goals, but how we choose to shape that future. I'm not here tonight to debate whether Oak Park should address housing affordability. I believe we should. Nor am I here to debate the painful history of housing discrimination in America. That history is real, and it deserves thoughtful solutions. Zoning is the architecture of a community before the architecture begins. Over the years, I've watched Oak Park evolve one project at a time. Good communities evolve thoughtfully through careful planning and broad public confidence in the decisions that guide that evolution. Broad changes to zoning ordinance is different. This is not an adjustment to setbacks, parking requirements, or lot coverage. It is not an incremental refinement of our zoning ordinance. It is a fundamental change to the development rights associated with residential property throughout Oak Park. Decisions of this magnitude will shape the physical form of our village for generations. As architects, we are trained to think in decades because buildings outlive us. I believe zoning requires that same long view. Will eliminating the single-family zoning produce the missing middle housing? It's an important question, but before we answer that, we should answer a more fundamental one. Who should decide? This is not simply a policy decision. It is a decision about the physical framework of nearly every residential neighborhood in Oak Park. On questions of such permanence, I believe the strongest foundation is public trust. Architecture has taught me the best designs begin by listening. Before we reshape the framework that guides the future of every neighborhood in this village, we should listen to the people who live in those neighborhoods. It would be the strongest foundation upon which to build Oak Park's future. Some decisions are so consequential that they deserve more than legal authority. They deserve public ownership. It's true that we elected you to make the difficult decisions. You make decisions on behalf of our community every day, and you should. But once in a great while, a decision comes before you that isn't different in kind, not merely in degree. A decision that will influence the physical character of a community for the next 50 or 100 years. I believe this is one of those decisions. If after a community-wide referendum, Oak Park chooses this direction, then the decision will rest on the strongest possible foundation, the informed consent of the people. If the community chooses otherwise, that deserves equal respect. Either outcome strengthens public trust. Whatever decision is ultimately made, my hope is that future generations will be able to look back and say Oak Park approached this moment with the same care, humility, and thoughtfulness that is long expected to those who shape its built environment. And I believe this decision deserves nothing less. Thank you.
James? And after James will be Chris.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Jim Posnack. I live at 328 North Lombard Avenue in Oak Park. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe because I came here prepared to encourage the board to hold, some of the public meetings that are in the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus's Strategic Vision for Housing. And I've been told by knowledgeable people that the village has done that for the last couple of years. Obviously, that hasn't been communicated very well to the residents, including me and my wife, and we're pretty well-informed people. So I guess I'm not going to tell you to hold hearings that you held already, but I would encourage you to let everybody know you did it and what were the results of those hearings, et cetera. Where is that information? Now, I will say this. If you're going to eliminate single-family housing, you must tie that to requirements for affordable housing. If you simply just say, there's not going to be any more single-family housing ordinance, what's to stop people from coming in and building, luxury housing like what happened in downtown? I know there's an economic theory that says that if you build enough, if there's enough supply, prices go down. But what's the tipping point for that here in our village? We don't know. So rather than take that risk, any single-family elimination must say that if you're going to tear a house down, it has to be, affordable housing, and obviously that has to be defined. But you can't just create a free-for-all. The other thing is we have parcels right now in this village that are vacant, and why not rezone those for affordable housing? I mean, either acquire them, or if our borrowing authority is tapped out, which the Wednesday Journal reports it is, or nearly, then rezone it like the more concrete. And there's other places. There's a abandoned dry cleaner on Chicago and Taylor or Humphrey, right by an apartment building. Rezone those vacant parcels and require affordable housing to be built on them. And I say do that first and see if there's anybody out there that'll even build on those things before you, scrap the single family ordinance thinking that it's going to accomplish what we do have to have in this town is more affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris? And after Chris will be Karen. Chris S.
Yeah.
Lots of Chris's.
Hello. I don't need this. Do I have oh, damn it. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen. My local political advocacy began with Fair Vote Illinois and the effort to bring ranked choice voting to Oak Park. Many of you are familiar with the referendum that passed in 2024, but you may not be aware that in 2023 we tried to lobby the village board to get its passage, and at the time we did not succeed. We felt it looked at the time as a setback, but in hindsight it was actually a blessing. What that forced us to do is change our strategy and take that issue directly to the voters. Through signature gathering, canvassing, and voter outreach, we educated the community, built public support, and today we can say that over 22,000 Oak Parkers voted in favor of ranked choice voting. That public mandate matters, and it makes our case much stronger when taking that issue to, we're lobbying for statewide action. Which brings me to one of the big issues for the summer, which is, we've already heard about, eliminating single-family zoning in Oak Park. If the goal is simply to make a zoning change, then yes, I would agree a village board vote is appropriate. But if the goal is to engage and enable more housing options in Oak Park, to allow existing neighborhoods to evolve and to encourage multifamily development and create more affordable housing in an inclusive Oak Park, then I would strongly urge you to consider moving to a referendum. You might see that as an obstacle, but I would encourage you to view that as an opportunity. Fundamental changes are strongest when the community is brought in along and becomes part of a partner in that process. There's already a lot of misinformation on the issue and misunderstanding about what this change means, and addressing that will require education, outreach, and engagement. A referendum creates an opportunity to do exactly that. A referendum also gives this board a chance to lead the community conversation and build public understanding. I believe the majority of Oak Parkers support this change, and given the opportunity, we will show that at the polls. That public endorsement will carry far greater weight and allow proponents of the change to lead, to push back against the inevitable pushback. And just to add to that, I'll even put my own skin in the game. If you go with the referendum route, I will go out and canvass in favor of this issue on your behalf. So anyway, thank you for your time and allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Karen B. And after Karen will be Jacob E.
Thank you.
I'm here as a homeowner, and I brought pictures for you guys, but you can read this later, actually. This is my house. When my husband and I moved to Oak Park 37 years ago, we moved here to live in a diverse community, a racially diverse, economically diverse community, and we feel like Oak Park has been a model of those things all these years and still is. We never expected to be right homeowners, but we are. And we've spent 37 years caring for this home. I'd like to tell you a story that very few people know, because during the time we've lived there, we are the 5th homeowners, and every homeowner or family member has returned from every one of those previous homeowners. And so the Thomases lived here for 60 years in the Frank Thomas house at 210 Forest Avenue, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. In 1961, the house was put on the market for the first time. And if you turn to the second page, you'll see what was being built in Oak Park in 1961. Most of the houses, there was no zoning to protect homes and no historic districts. And so on Kenilworth Avenue, on Ontario, a lot of areas around downtown Oak Park, old family homes, very traditional homes were torn down and sold, and we built a lot of multifamily housing. Some of it was great, some of it not so great, okay? Lucy Thomas had to sell the house that her parents had built and lived in and owned for 60 years. So she put it on the market. She got 2 offers. The first one was from a developer. It was the highest offer. The second one was from a family that wanted to live in the house. It was the Walsh family. If you go to Billy Bob's Pizza tonight, David Walsh is working. I'll bet it. Betcha. The Walsh family bought the house because Lucy took the lower offer. Not all homeowners can afford to do that. Developers will offer to pay more money than most of the market will bear, very often. But Lucy took the lower offer, and today we have this Frank Lloyd Wright masterpiece in our community because of that decision. On the last page of what I've handed out is a picture of the Walser House. You've seen this in the Wednesday Journal. It's in Austin. It's on Central Avenue, and it's a house that was not protected by zoning or by historic preservation, and it was owned and loved, but it's now in terrible disrepair, and it's surrounded by huge multifamily apartment buildings that hover over it. So think carefully about what you do with zoning. It's very, very important, and it's important to our community. Thank you.
Jacob E. And after Jacob E. will be John J.
Hello, my name is Jacob Eriksson. I live at 403 Northeast. I'm in the same crew as everyone else here. And my wife and I were both professors at UIC. We have 3 kids, one in high school, one at Brooks Middle, one in Holmes Elementary. And we lived just north of the high school for 14 years so far. We chose Oak Park because of the large lots, the beautiful houses, the trees and greenery, and our close-knit neighborhood community, and our kids being able to walk to their neighborhood schools. It's also relatively close to work. Let me tell you about our block. It's zoned R1. When we have block parties, it's 4 block parties where everyone chips in. There's tons of kids, broad mix of ages, origins, professions. Kids roam the backyard. Everyone knows everyone. To me, this is a great environment to raise a kid. This is the direct effect of zoning. Enforcing low density and home ownership creates community. People are outside, tend the yard, play with kids. When a dog runs away, a neighborhood will spot it and has the owner's phone number. Owner residents have a long-term commitment to community building. By contrast, rental buildings have higher turnover. residents have less incentive to invest in community building among neighbors. Moreover, neither rental nor condo units have an outside face to help establish neighborhood connections and build trust. People live behind closed doors. Isolation is more common. When we rented in the South Loop before Oak Park, we sort of knew one neighbor on our floor out of 10, and not one person on the other 26 floors. Single-family housing in Oak Park is expensive precisely because it's a scarce and desirable resource. It's desirable because of the environment that single-family zoning creates. Dropping the zoning rules would gradually make our neighborhoods less desirable by reducing quality of life, thus causing demand and prices to drop. But if the goal is to make the place less desirable, there are more, there are more expedient ways. You could try shutting off the water service, for example. But seriously, Village Hall's duty is to act in the interest of current residents. It's not to make Oak Park less desirable so that others can afford to move in. In summary, abandoning single-family zoning would be a monumental mistake. It shouldn't even be considered, but since it is, it must go to a referendum. The only reason to not let this go to a referendum would be if the board intends to ram it through against the will and interest of the voting public. Please do the referendum. Thank you.
John? And after John will be Matthew M.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Jenks. I live at 720 North Humphrey. And like probably almost everyone else in Oak Park, I recently received a postcard from a group called Maybe in My Backyard. It raised plenty of issues about zoning changes being considered and urged people to contact their board members. So I did. And then I decided to come down here. But my concern was not highlighted in the MIMBY card. My concern is that Oak Park has become unaffordable. The median cost of a single-family house is now substantially north of $500,000, according to Redfin. There are upward pressures on condo prices and rents as well. This clearly limits who can live here. More construction in the missing middle could help. Hell, when I first came to Oak Park 26 years ago, I lived in a two-flat. I couldn't afford a single-family house. But beyond that, there is a regional problem that doesn't bypass Oak Park. We need to build more housing everywhere in the area. Ideally, it should be low and medium cost, but even if it isn't, adding to the housing supply helps on the demand side. Now, last month, the state legislature shirked its responsibility when it allowed Governor Pritzker's build plan to stall without a vote. But Oak Park should not be that irresponsible. Thank you. You should go ahead and approve the recommendation from the Opticos consultant and get the ball rolling on zoning reform. Now, since I have a little time, I'd like to insert a personal note here about housing. For the past 22 years, I've lived in a single-family house on North Humphrey, which is zoned R4 single-family. In recent years, there have been tear-downs, near tear-downs, where they leave one wall open to get grandfathered in, and gut rehabs on my street, but only for increasingly pricey single-family residential. No two flats, no three flats, no small apartment buildings. Those examples of affordable early and late-stage housing are increasingly scarce. Now, my kids have been reasonably successful. They're grown and flown. They don't live in my basement, but now could not afford to buy on the street where they grew up. Later, I might want to downsize, but would have few options nearby. It doesn't have to be that way. We elected you all to make decisions, so go ahead and vote on July 28th to accept the Opticos consultant's report. Thank you.
Well, I'll wait till the, yep.
Moment. And after Matthew will be Frank S.
I'm Matt Mueller. I live at 633 Southeast Avenue. Let Oak Park residents aside. For nearly 50 years, or over 50 years, Oak Park has been my home. I grew up here. I've watched families restore historic homes, businesses come and go, children become parents, and neighborhoods evolve. Like many residents, I invested not only financially, in this community, but emotionally as well. Oak Park is more than where I live. It is part of who I am. That is why I believe one of the most significant planning decisions Oak Park has faced in decades should be made not only by the village board, but by people who call Oak Park their home. The proposal to eliminate or substantially weaken single-family housing or zoning is not a routine amendment to the zoning code. It's a decision that could permanently influence the future of every residential neighborhood in Oak Park. It has implications for redevelopment, neighborhood character, housing costs, parking, traffic, schools, public services, infrastructure, property values for decades to come. Regardless of where someone stands on the issue, this decision is simply too important not to be placed before the voters. Let me be clear, I support expanded housing opportunities. Oak Park should continue exploring ways to make our community accessible to young families, teachers, first responders, healthcare workers, seniors, and others who want to live here. Housing affordability is a real challenge throughout our entire region, and it deserves thoughtful solutions. But thoughtful solutions require thoughtful questions. Supporters of this proposal argue that increased housing density will improve affordability, broaden the tax base, and create additional housing choices. Those goals are admirable. The question is whether eliminating single-family zoning will actually accomplish them. Oak Park is already unlike most suburbs. Our housing stock is remarkably diverse. Nearly 60% of our housing already consists of apartments, condominiums, two flats, townhomes, and multiple family housing. We have spent generations creating neighborhoods that successfully blend a variety of housing types while preserving the character that makes Oak Park unique. Residents deserve answers to practical questions. What will be the impact on parking, traffic, water and sewer capacity, stormwater management, road maintenance, police and fire services? Has D97 in Oak Park River Forest High School completed enrollment analysis? How will historic neighborhoods be protected from speculative redevelopment? These are not argumentative against housing. They are questions responsible governments answer before implementing transformational public policy. A referendum is not a rejection of representative government. It is representative government at its best. Lasting trust is built through transparency, accountability, and public participation, not by asking residents to simply accept decisions of this magnitude. For over 50 years, I've been proud to call Oak Park my home. I hope the next 50 years are shaped not only by thoughtful planning, but also openness, accountability, and meaningful public participation. Let the people decide. Thank you. Matt Mueller.
Frank S., and after Frank, it will be Curtis T.
Frank Sakira, 922 Winona. You all have an essay that I wrote that I sent to you all involving every issue that I could think of, or almost everything, around single-family zoning. But that's a limited readership, and so I would like to avail myself of a process we see in Congress and commissional meetings. I'm going to give a copy to the clerk, and with the expectation that the minutes will reflect that I gave this document, and that also that it will contain a link, that the minutes contain a link like you put in your agendas of documents, so that if anyone wants to read, they can see, because many of the issues that I address have been addressed here today. The main thing I want to address is the remarks of Trustee Straw at the end of the last meeting. You made two remarks. This essay addresses one. I want to address the other now. And forgive me if I don't quote you exactly, but it's to the effect that the main thrust of this is to generate 2 flats and 3 flats in the single-family neighborhoods that would fit in. If that were all, this would not be a problem. You could change that by changing a few lines in this chart of what the coding regulations, the zoning regulations are, and a few other places. You don't need to abolish single-family zoning to do that. You could do it on a much more limited scale. But abolishing single-family zoning then is like shooting a fly with an elephant gun, because remember, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston study that I quoted at length says that abolishing single-family zoning alone will not do the job to create affordable housing. Only density will. Density increases. If you abolish single-family zoning, you're giving away the store to builders, and you will have no leverage with them after that to affect what they build. So what are they going to build? They're going to build whatever meets the new zoning density limits, which will likely be increased, because that's the only way you can get affordable housing, according to the bank. The most profitable thing that these developers will do, and they will be salivating to do, is to put up luxury homes, even 2 flats, certainly 3 flats, 4 flats. Under the Pritzker bill, my house could be replaced by a 6-flat. So why would a builder even go for a 40-unit building when there's an unlimited supply of single-family homes? I want to take a single example of what you may be faced with, and that is all the many one-story single-family homes, especially in the eastern part of Oak Park. There is no way that any builder is going to buy one of those and divide it into a 2-flat or a duplex. What they're going to do is bulldoze it and put up luxury housing, and the result is that you will not have created any new affordable housing. You will have unaffordable housing. The less unaffordable is these small single families.
Are you coming to a close?
Pardon me, yes.
Thank you.
It will, you will have less of that because you'll take a house off the market, and the increasing trend will be to make the community consist more and more and more of wealthy individuals that could afford it. In essence, you're risking that the project could backfire and make matters worse.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about trustee.
I'm sorry, I need you to move on.
Pardon me?
Your 3 minutes has passed.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate your coming in.
Curtis? And then after Curtis will be Frank V.
Curtis Todd, Elmwood Avenue. Good evening, President Skaman, trustees, and village staff. Approximately 1 year ago, the board approved an ambitious bike plan, and since then, I've spoken several times about the need to reevaluate the plan with meaningful resident participation. Instead, the board chose to rely on the Transportation Commission and address problems only after they emerged. That approach has already resulted in a series of unanticipated issues, including the need to address e-bike safety, bike riding on sidewalks, damaged flexible delimitors, and now the projected public investment of approximately $30 million. Yet despite the magnitude of this commitment, there's still no comprehensive performance management system, no regular public reporting, and no clearly defined benchmarks demonstrating whether the plan is delivering the benefits that were promised. I cannot think of another village initiative of this side that will proceed without rigorous evaluation, transparent reporting, and measurable outcomes. Residents deserve to know why this project is being treated differently. They also deserve the opportunity to revisit the plan and contribute new ideas based on what we've learned over the past year. The board is considering financing of more than $120 million in capital improvements to the proposed bond issuance. These plans include the new police station, the village renovations, the Oak Park Avenue and Percy Julian streetscapes, the bike plan, Vision Zero improvements. The Finance Committee has focused primarily on comparing financing scenarios. However, it did not examine a more fundamental question. Should every project be financed through long-term debt? Municipal bonds are generally intended to finance long-term capital-live assets whose useful life matches the repayment period. That approach makes sense for facilities such as the police station or the village hall. It's far more difficult to justify for many bike plan and Vision Zero improvements. Many of these projects rely on painted pavement markings, flexible passive delineators, traffic calming devices, signage, public bike racks, and other infrastructure that often has a useful life of only 5 to 7 years before requiring replacement. Yet under this proposal, residents could be paying debt service on those improvements for as long as 30 years. That's neither sound financial management nor responsible use of taxpayer dollars. If the board believes these projects will generate significant economic, transportation, and environmental benefits, then those benefits should be measurable, regularly reported, and substantial enough to justify the ongoing costs. To date, millions of dollars have been committed without a transparent system for evaluating whether the proposed promised outcomes are actually being achieved. I respectfully urge the board to reconsider including the bike plan and Vision Zero projects in the bond issuance and explore alternate financing strategies that better match the life cycle of the assets. Thank you.
Frankie. And after Frank will be Commissioner Charstamps.
Good evening. I'm Frank Vozak, 804 South Humphrey. I think probably by this time all of you know me because if you're here on a Tuesday night, so am I. Obviously, again, based on previous comments, I oppose the change from single-family zoning. Tonight I came with a list of questions and a list of neat ideas, but other citizens beat me to them. I guess that happens sometimes when you're lucky enough to live in the smartest village in the world, other people will sometimes trump you. So I'm going to try and, on the fly, please pardon me if I'm kind of disjointed. On the fly, I'm going to try and bring a few comments that I think haven't been covered yet. Now, I am honestly concerned about missing middle because, by the way, I was one of those people. I was, as I bored you with before, I was lucky. I'm a veteran. I'm retired military, and I can afford to live in Oak Park because of the GI Bill, and because I live one block off of Boston, right down by the Ike, which is at that time about the lowest cost place to live in the village. But I want people to be able to live here. I want us to have a wide, varied population. I want the members of my model railroad club to be able to live in this village and not have to come here from Naperville because they can't afford to live here anymore. But I also want us to have balance. I like the idea of a balanced, varied, vibrant neighborhood. Actually, I just described my block. My block has single-family homes. We have a couple of buildings that look like they should be two flats, but they're not. They're single-family homes. And we have two apartment buildings, one a condo, and one, sadly, was going to be a condo, but the housing market fell in, and actually then the local citizen who developed the thing went broke. And so it's an apartment building. And there's, just go up and down Harrison Street. Actually, back out of my garage and you back into 7 West Van Buren, which is one of the tallest buildings in East Oak Park. So I live in an area where there's balance. I think we need balance, but we need balance with some kind of common sense. We need the kind of balance that will give us 2 flats and 4 flats, single-family homes, but not guys who come here with a big checkbook, buy a property, and go lot line to lot line from my alley to Humphrey and build a big thing there. And that's what you'll get with open zoning. We deserve planning. We deserve consideration. We deserve the possibility that we'll have balance. We deserve the idea that, yeah, there are 4 flats on our block, and they look like single-family homes because they're designed to match the architecture on the street. They're not made with just concrete block. So I'm going to ask you, thank you.
Cook County Commissioner Charstamps.
Good evening, everyone. It's always refreshing to see neighbors taking part in their democratic process. I'm just going to say this. I say it all the time at Cook County. If we don't get housing right, you don't get nothing else right. I say what I said. Okay. These remarks is to honor the life of Christian Wallace. Heavy is the womb that bears black boys. So tonight I'm not just speaking as your Cook County Commissioner, I'm also speaking as a mother who have 2 sons that were born and that were raised in Oak Park. Went to Oak Park schools from 1st grade through high school. and one is even a U.S. Capitol police officer. But heavy is the womb that bears black boys, and that's not just words. They are the lived reality of too many black mothers who prayed over their sons when they leave home, who teach them not only how to drive, but how to survive a traffic stop, who remind them to be respectful, to keep their hands visible, and all else to come home safely. Heavy is the womb that bears black boys, not because our sons are born with less value, but because too often they are treated as though their lives have less value. Today, as we gather, this is yesterday, with broken hearts because Christian Wallace's life mattered. He was not a headline, he was not a statistic, he was someone's son, he was someone's father, he was someone's family member, he was someone's future, and he was deeply loved. To Christian's family, I want you to know that you are not carrying this grief alone. This community mourns with you. We pray with you and we stand beside you, and we honor Christian's life by refusing to let his name be forgotten. And as we gather, we must also speak a difficult truth. We are not here to rush to conclusions. We are not here to inflame emotions. We are here because every life deserves dignity, and every family deserves answers, and every community deserves honesty. The fact that tells us that so many families live with this fear. Across the United States, police kill approximately 1,000 to 1,300 people every year. Unfortunately, too many black boys are in the high end of that sad, sad statistic. But I want to remind everybody that this family is just seeking truth, because only truth transforms. And it's a hard truth. Truth transforms broken families by replacing uncertainty with answers. Truth transforms communities by replacing suspicion with trust. Truth transforms institutions by replacing secrecy with accountability. Truth transforms hearts by replacing silence with courage. And truth transforms a nation by reminding us that every life is sacred. So today we pray for comfort. We pray for peace. We also pray for the courage to seek the whole truth wherever it may lead, because only the truth can produce genuine justice. So to Christian's family, we cannot remove your pain, and we cannot fill empty seats at your table. We cannot give you moments that you will lose, but we will pray for you, and we will hold you sacred, and we will lift his name and pray for the transformation that only truth can bring.
Kristen?
My name is Kristen Davison. This is Brian Brashears, and we're here also to address the killing of Christian Wallace by Oak Park Police. And we are honored to read a letter written by our community in response and requests and demands for our village board today. I want to acknowledge the presence of loved ones of Christian Wallace with love and honor and respect. And also anyone who's signed on to the letter or wishes to stand in solidarity while we read it, you're welcome to. Nearly 300 Oak Park residents have signed on to the letter. To the President and members of the Oak Park Board of Trustees, we, the undersigned organizations and community members, write with profound grief, anger, and urgency to demand accountability for the death of Christian Wallace. On May 31st, 2026, Christian Wallace was stopped by Oak Park Police for an alleged traffic violation. In the process of that stop, he was shot multiple times by an Oak Park police officer. Body and dash camera video released publicly indicate that he was handcuffed after the shooting and experienced delays in life-saving medical care while he lay critically wounded. He died from his injuries soon after. This tragedy has deeply shaken our community. For years, advocates, researchers, and even members of the Citizen Police Oversight Committee have provided data that irrefutably shows Black drivers are disproportionately pulled over in our community. Freedom to Thrive Oak Park penned a letter in 2020, signed by hundreds of residents in our community, which outlined concerns about policing that have not changed in 6 years. Years of calls to action, critical conversations, and promises from leadership have not led to change or even meaningful progress. Oak Park takes great pride in the cultural and racial diversity we have cultivated over many decades. relying on community trust and goodwill to keep our village welcoming for all. But the undeniable racial disparities in policing in Oak Park do not reflect the community we strive to be, making our village less safe for Black residents and visitors. Now, the worst outcome, one many have feared for years, has happened in our community. The death of Kristen Wallace has resulted in fear and trauma for residents, business owners, and visitors. Our community demands a transparent response that acknowledges both the irreversible loss suffered by his family and loved ones and the broader impact this incident has had on community trust. In pursuit of community restoration, reparations, and future harm reduction, the community makes the following demands of our village leadership.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm Jason of South Kenilworth. I'll read the list of demands, and afterward, if you'd like to join us in the area out here for a moment of silence to honor Kristen Wallace, appreciate it. Demand number 1, support a fully independent and transparent investigation into the incident, including the actions leading up to the stop, the officer's use of deadly force, the actions of all officers present, and the medical response following the shooting. A civilian-led commission should review and analyze this incident alongside ISP investigators, with all reports made publicly available for review by the Oak Park community. 2, ensure the officer who shot Kristen Wallace will not return to duty until the independent, civilian-led investigation is complete and the officer has been cleared of any illegal activity or wrongdoing. 3, ensure swift and meaningful accountability for any violations of law, department policy, or constitutional rights identified through independent investigation. 4, pause all planning and funding for an alternative police station until the statute of limitations has expired for any potential civil lawsuits incurred by taxpayers regarding this incident. This investment is set to be one of the largest capital investments in village history. Before issuing additional taxpayer-funded dollars for this project, decision-making regarding accountability, transparency, and public trust warrants the highest level of scrutiny. 5, pass an Oak Park ordinance to keep communities safer by ending non-safety traffic stops and ensure OPPD receives training to comply with the new law. 6, in light of this incident, the misconstrued communication surrounding it, and other recent concerning police incidents in Oak Park, conduct a formal review of the village manager and their role in producing timely, accurate, and ethical responses to this incident. 7, the village should adopt a formal, critical communication and transparency protocol, establishing clear expectations for public communication, coordination with external investigative agencies, video release, and ongoing status updates would improve transparency, strengthen accountability, and help rebuild public trust during future critical incidents. Kristen Wallace should be alive today. His death is a devastating loss for his friends, family, and the community. We urge the Board of Trustees to act swiftly in response to these demands so that Oak Park Police never kill another person. Thank you.
Do we want to take a brief recess? If there's members of the board that'd like to take a brief recess, I would certainly support that. Okay. Oh, no, a recess we can just do, right? Yeah.
Village president may declare recess for
Yeah.
whatever period of time you
All
like.
right. We'll take a brief recess. Thank you. Resume, thank you, from our brief recess. And oh, excellent. Do we have, is it over there, Trustee Anya? Okay, now, so Clerk Waters, do you have any additional public comment in your possession?
Not non-agenda public comment. It is agenda-related public comment.
Okay, very good. Now, since we did table motion I just want to make sure that the three who were here to speak on that matter don't still wish to speak, as you certainly can. Jim Ritter, Michael Week, and David Asta. Are they gone? All right, thank you. And so is there anyone else who has non-agenda public comment? Please. Thank you, Greg.
Good evening. My name is Brad Cook. On Friday, July 10th, I received this shutoff notice, final warning, giving me 1 week to pay my water bill. I'm not the only one. I can confirm several Oak Park residents also received this notice. I can't pay a bill if I don't have the invoice for it. The department did confirm that the May invoice was not sent and autopay instructions were not processed. My first invoice was issued on June 24th with a June 10th due date. The invoice is over a month late with a due date backdated 2 weeks, which accelerated the timelines for fees and water shutoff notices. When I reached out to settle the account, I was required to overpay an amount inflated with a 3.5% fee. I've been told that I will receive a credit, but collecting excess payments the village knows to be in error while under the threat of water shutoff is coercive and is an administrative procedure that shouldn't be followed. I do urge that we review these billing practices and ensure that the timelines and payment collection procedures are in compliance with the legal requirements. We must suspend any water shutoffs associated with delayed payments on the May bill while we resolve these administrative errors. The village must actively monitor and take responsibility for the communications it distributes. Making legally enforceable threats like this to shut off Oak Park families' water in 90-degree temperatures is not the correct way to fix an administrative error. These shutoff notices should not have been sent. 3 weeks to lose water if you do not pay is not very much time. We must intervene before the shutoff notice's due date, which is this Friday, July 17th, to make sure that this threat of dangerous water shutoff does not take place. I have received some assurance that this has already been taken, so that is very good to hear, but we do need to make sure that we're not shutting off people's water due to an administrative error. Thank you.
Thank you. Village Manager Jackson?
Yeah, President Scammon, trustee members, I would like to actually give an update on where we are with this. This is, we encountered a computer glitch. CFO Kevin Boyso can explain it. I think we advanced communication earlier to you all about what's going on and how we're correcting the issue. But Kevin.
Yeah, thank you to the resident for the comment, and we did speak just right before the comment here, but we did send some information out to the board as well. We did find out that there's an issue with our Invoice Cloud system. That's the payment processing system that we use. When we send the file out to Invoice Cloud, when there's a discrepancy between our main ERP system or our billing system, BSNA, and Invoice Cloud, what Invoice Cloud does, it goes back to the prior bill that we sent out correctly. And unfortunately, that was back in March, and that's what caused the shorter timeline for the payments or for the invoices to be sent out or the bills to be sent out. As a result of that, anybody that we looked into it, there's about 1,600 accounts, so about 1,600 out of the 12,000 accounts that we have were impacted by this. It's only the people that sign up for auto debit and then pay via text that were impacted. So we do have email addresses for these accounts. So we're going to be reaching out, and we put an email together to send it to the residents. In the meantime, I know we have received hundreds of calls, and our staff has done a great job, I would say, responding to them. At the same time, we talked to our communications department today, and they put some information out already on our website, on our water billing landing page. And then tomorrow there's going to be some information being posted on our social media accounts about this issue as well. We did confirm that we're going to be able to mass reverse any late fees that are attached to these accounts. So any residents that have called in, some of the frequently asked questions, if you will, do we need to sign up again for auto debit? The answer is no. This was a one-time issue. Do we need to pay the bill? Yes. The principal amount on that bill is still due. And so we're working with each resident to make sure that that is understood. So there are some business accounts as well. There was only 2 cycles out of all the cycles that we have here at the village that were impacted by these. And then moving forward, we're doing a lot. We're documenting how this process or how this issue can be prevented in the future. We are working with Invoice Cloud to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And then finally, again, just as residents walk in or they call in, we explain that the late fees are going to be reversed, that we're putting all the shutoffs on hold right now as well while we work through this issue. So while this is normally the process during the summer that we're doing the shutoffs, while we do review these, we're not going to be doing any shutoffs to make sure that we get to the bottom of these so that we don't inadvertently shut somebody's water off without who had paid or who had run into this issue. So that's kind of where we are about these. I do apologize to the residents and the village board for this issue. I know the village board members have received some emails as well. This is not the way that we want to do things, but as we go through process improvements and documenting our processes as well, this is one of the items or one of the functions within finance that we definitely need to look into a little bit further than what we have done in the past. So much appreciate the comment and the feedback that we have received so far.
Okay, so real quickly, because I'm on auto pay and I haven't noticed anything yet. If somebody you're going to take care of it, whether the resident has figured it out or not?
Yeah, we will. And more likely, if you did not receive something in the mail, you're not part of that cycle that we built just yet. Yeah, but regardless of whether we get a call or somebody comes in or somebody walks in during business hours, we're reviewing each one of those accounts to make sure that 1, they know that the bill is still outstanding, 2, that the late fees are going to be reversed, and then 3, that no water shutoff will happen because of that issue. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm very sorry for your receiving that notice to all of the residents. I'm sure it would have been upsetting for anybody. And thank you to staff for your transparency in addressing it quickly and taking the steps necessary. I'm sure that's going to be a little bit of work. Okay, so if there's no further non-agenda public comment, then I'll go to village manager's reports.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, thank you. So just a few updates, and so we want to start tonight with providing an update on the Missing Middle Project Initiative, particularly the schedule and the activities related to additional public engagement. So Craig Fahler, Development Services Director, is going to share some information on that. And then relatedly, I would like for Attorney Smith to share some information on referendum requirements as it relates to municipalities. Craig.
Thanks. Craig Fahler, Director of Development Services. We are currently working with Opticos on establishing some times in late August for community engagement after the village board's review of the recommendations on July 28th. We're looking at 6 different events held throughout the community. When we do 3 on the north side and 3 on the south side, we're looking at a combination of those. Some of those are going to be more of a traditional presentation, discussion, Q&A, and the other 3 will be part of events like the farmers market. So I want to be able to have a mix of those. But before even that occurs, we want to send out a postcard to the community, to each household, to let them know, 1, that we're going to have this public engagement, where they can go, what time, But we're also going to let them know that we're creating this comparison tool that each of them can access via the website, where they can put in their property, their address, and understand what the change might be if we modify the zoning code from what they currently are zoned and what they can develop on their site versus what is potential in the future for when rezoning may happen. So those are coming up. And then we are looking at, once the board has given direction on January 23rd, and we've gone through the public engagement piece, then we will be scheduling a public hearing with the Plan Commission to talk about zoning ordinance changes. And so we hope to get through that process and come back to the village board at the end of October with a recommendation from the Plan Commission. So that's kind of the schedule at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand there were some 2x2s and meetings last week. I was out of town, and so I'm might have to repeat myself in a couple days with my rescheduled meeting, but what kind of engagement, public education can we do before July 28th?
Good question.
Can we get a website where people can look and get the information about?
Yes. We have a website for the project under Engage Oak Park. Thank you for reminding me that. And Opticos has also put up additional information just this week about the process, about what missing middle is, and a whole bunch of educational materials that the public can access before we have these public sessions. So that's kind of new to the Engage Oak Park website.
I'll check it out, thanks.
And we can share that website on social media and push it out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would expect that communications would take the lead in promoting the additional, information outreach that we're doing with the website, also the meetings and such. And if you may recall, just as a frame of reference, we did some direct engagement on the bike plan initiative. So we assumed that we'd at least meet that threshold or exceed it during late August, early September, prior to the first hearing for the Plan Commission that's anticipated, I think, late September?
Mid-September.
Mid-September,
Yeah.
yes.
Also, we'll also put the link to Engage Oak Park in the postcards that we send out as well.
Okay. I think I saw Jim first, and then I'll go to Brian.
So when you say the link, are you referring to the actual recommendation? Has that been released yet to the public?
It has not.
Okay, when will that be? Because I think the sooner the better. We've had it for a few days only.
I mean, we're scheduling for your meeting on the 28th, and I think most of you have seen it already, so.
Right.
I mean, we could add it to the website at some point.
I mean, I don't want, what's your thought on that? I think people
Well,
are
I think
asking.
Jenna might deserve her, or not.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
obviously, yeah. Sorry.
Trustee Taglia, trustee members. Yeah, I mean, typically, obviously, we post typically on Fridays, and certainly if there is a desire to post ahead of time, I think we could be prepared to post the information prior to the ordinary time that we posted, and likely after the meeting on the 21st. I would assume the focus be, trying to work through the agenda on the 21st, and then subsequent to that, we could try to get it out earlier than that Friday deadline that we typically get it out.
Yeah, we can post it earlier than that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the earlier the better. Thank you. I appreciate that. And just one other question. You mentioned January and a date. What was that date specifically? You said January 23rd. Is that a?
January?
I thought, did I hear?
A January date.
A January date?
No.
You didn't? Okay. I'm
July.
sorry.
No.
Okay.
July, August, September, and October were the
Okay.
key
I also
months.
heard something about you said something. I thought I heard it. Maybe I heard it wrong.
No worries. Not tonight, but, we gave a previous update on this, and we got, some input from the trustees about the schedule itself. And so since that time, we've revised the schedule to accelerate it in a way that, it could come before the board sometime in October as opposed to January.
Yeah, I think the original schedule was towards the end of the month, or end of the year, starting in January, but we've shifted that to coming to you in October.
And that would be what? What would be you looking for in October? That's the
The last,
recommendation?
yeah, the last meeting in October would be a recommendation from the Plan Commission.
That's their recommendation to the board. They'll either accept it, reject it, or they can make a
Modify it,
modification.
yeah. Mhm.
And that's their recommendation. Okay, very good. Thank you.
My question was similarly going to be when, how soon can we get the recommendation that we'll be considering on the 28th? I know normally it would be after the meeting on the 21st. I think, especially given what we heard in public comment tonight, it does seem like there's some misunderstandings about what exactly is on the table, because I heard some of the strong proponents of a referendum describing what they would like to see as substantively similar to what has been proposed. And so I think that getting the proposal out there earlier so that the comments we receive on the 28th when we're considering this, hopefully we'll be able to fully consider and digest and be responsive to what the proposal actually is, rather than a vague, unattributed mail piece that doesn't actually inform about what is being proposed and considered.
Yeah, so we'll follow up with a specific schedule, but certainly we can commit to, I just want to have the opportunity to talk to the staff to see what's possible, but I think we can commit to getting it out much earlier than the ordinary deadline. So, and there may be a couple different ways to do that. So obviously we can always post the agenda earlier, but we could also share the information prior to posting the actual official agenda as well.
Yeah, I know we always have other things going on with the agenda, so if there's another route of just posting the recommendation potentially in the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a downside to it.
Yeah, I think it's ready to go, so whenever we do that, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And did you have any other village manager reports?
Yes, I do, but I want to, just to round off this item, I want to ask Attorney Greg Smith to just provide a brief synopsis of the requirements for referendum for municipalities. Greg?
Yeah, certainly. So a referendum, of course, is a question put to the public on a ballot at an election. And in Illinois, there's two types of referendum, an advisory and a binding. An advisory referendum, as its name suggests, has no legal effect. It's just a question, and the results of the election can provide input to elected officials like the village board here on the will of the public with respect to that matter. A binding referendum, as its name suggests, has legal effect, meaning that it takes a question away from the village board or imposes a new legal requirement on the village. In Illinois, the Illinois Constitution determines whether a referendum may be advisory or binding. The only type of binding referendum that is allowed in Illinois with respect to a municipality is that which is specifically contemplated by the Constitution or specifically authorized by state law. For instance, the Illinois Constitution says that the village's home rule status must be set by referendum. That's a binding referendum. The number of trustees that serve on this board is also subject to a referendum according to state law, or rather the Constitution. State law and the Constitution do not allow for a binding referendum on a zoning land use question. The only type of binding referendum related to zoning under state law is in municipalities under 5,000 population, if their zoning board of appeal members should be appointed or elected. So in a small town, you could actually have elected zoning board members. Otherwise, state law and the Constitution are silent when it comes to referenda relating to zoning. As such, it is not possible for any binding referendum regarding the issues relating to missing middle housing writ large that substantively can be placed on the ballot. Advisory referenda are fair game, right? Take the barometer of the public, but a binding referendum is not authorized on this matter.
Thank you.
Anyone have questions? Jim? Comment?
I can wait if you want.
No, please.
I understand that provision, and thank you for clarifying. I welcome an advisory referendum. I think it represents a lower bar for this board to accept in order to allow public input, and it represents a gauge that we can use, that we can assess whether the public is more or less, first of all, educated about this, second of all, informed, and third of all, willing to approve such a measure. So I do welcome that, and I think it's perfectly acceptable, and I would continue to pursue that from an advisory referendum standpoint. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if I was going to comment further. Brian, did you have something first?
I don't know whether you'd be able to respond tonight, but can you talk a little bit about on it for an advisory referendum, what the requirements are regarding sort of length and complexity of the question, and for something such as reforming zoning and that impacting buildable envelope, number of allowable units, and multiple different zoning classifications, how and whether that could be reduced to a advisory referendum.
Yeah. So I think the touchstone is that the question must be answered on the ballot, yes or no. It is not possible to construct a ballot with a matrix of responses. Like, I like A and C, but not B, right? It's not multiple choice or like check boxes, unfortunately. It is possible for the village board to put several referenda on a ballot. Up to 3 advisory or up to 3 referenda are allowed on the village portion of the ballot at each election. So it is possible for the board to fashion several questions, I suppose, that touch on different aspects of what you raised, Trustee Straw, if the board wanted to take an advisory barometer of the public's opinion about those matters. Otherwise, as you noted, it becomes very difficult to fashion a question that has multiple considerations in it, given the binary yes or no choice that voters have to cast.
What are the requirements regarding length of a question and sort of clarity, simplicity? I don't know the legal jargon there.
So for advisory questions, the standards are different than for binding questions. A binding question has to be easily understood, but comprehensive enough that it doesn't leave gaps to be filled in later. For advisory questions, the case law is not as well defined, but we can follow up with more specifics. I don't know if the county clerk or the election code imposes a character limit on a referendum question. We've seen lengthy ones in the past on state level questions. Crime victims' rights, they were added to the Illinois Constitution, were a page or more of a printed ballot, right? But we can, if requested, we'd be happy to look into that and provide further guidance.
Thank you.
I was going to address some of the same concerns, but I know that we do have a motion and a second from Trustee Taglia and Trustee Wesley, who is in participating in the meeting remotely per our protocol. We hope he's feeling better soon. And that maybe it seems like that would be an appropriate time to really talk about all of these detailed challenges, but it is, I'll say, and if you want to comment further, then I'll turn the floor over to you. But since what we're hearing, we would want the question to be more than, are you in favor of getting rid of single-family zoning? Because we already see is that we're far more aligned based on the public comment with where those who are opposed to it stand, and I'm repeating, but I'm emphasizing, than many people think. And so that would be the caution that I would leave folks with, is that it does need to be more substantive, or it doesn't give us the community feedback that is being suggested that a referendum would do. If it's not clear enough on what it is that we're considering and the goals that we have, which again, very aligned with a lot of the public comment we've heard, on affordability, on diversity of housing stock, on, you know, some of that protection of our historical homes, et cetera. Jim?
I just want to add to Brian that I appreciate your line of questioning, that you're considering what that language might look like on the referendum. So thank you for that. And I would just say it certainly could be worked through very easily. We have a recommendation. We're going to analyze it. It's going to be is this recommendation of the village board, which has been discussed at that point repeatedly, do you support it or not? But I get that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so that would have to be heard before actually the end of this month, because it would be due by August 17th, is that correct?
Yes, there are timelines for the village board to adopt a resolution or ordinance placing a referendum on the ballot. And I just want to confirm that timing.
Yeah, we'll confirm. I think it's August 17th for the November 3rd general election.
If anyone wants to make a note, that happens to be my birthday.
Which date?
So I can confirm that for the November 3rd general election, August 17th is the village board deadline to take action. And then for the April 6th, 2027 election, you have a January 19th of 2027 deadline for the village board to take action.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more village manager, well, we did have the calendars on there too under village manager's report.
Yeah, I got one other item too.
Okay.
It is an update on the CAD RMS project that we are working with multiple jurisdictions as part of our relationship with the West Suburban Consolidated Dispatch Center. So I'm going to ask Executive Director Brian Staunton to come up. He's going to deliver this presentation and answer any questions of the board. Thank you. Brian. I'll say, so we have Kelly Murphy from the police department. So are you going to introduce this? Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, actually, Kelly Murphy, Administrative Commander for the Police Department. I'm actually going to present the PowerPoint here with Brian for any questions after. So this is an update on the CAD RMS project that has taken place thus far. We're going to go over how it started, where we're at, and where we're going. Should be nice and easy here. So it started in 2022 when Barry Dunn reported out on the community safety project, which was a recommendation that the RMS get replaced. April 26, 2024, at that time, the West Suburban Consolidated Dispatch Center put out an RFP, and then ultimately a vendor was chosen in July 2025. In the meantime here, we have added Elmwood Park and Rosemont to the scope of the project because they have joined West Suburban Consolidated Dispatch Center. So we started engagement with Tyler in September 2025. Periodically, we have meetings with Tyler, with Westcom, as well as our project manager, Mission Critical Partners. We've gone through training for administrators, as well as an initial on-site testing that took place in June. So the current activities we're working through right now are configuration and implementation. We worked through a initial data migration, as well as interfaces for third parties, training, and continuous change management orders to help us through the project. The next steps are to complete that configuration, as well as finalize the data migration. And then we'll do a second on-site review of the testing to make sure the program is working properly the way we have implemented it. We'll do some additional training, and then we are on track for a December 2026 implementation. This is a high-level overview of the project. So we're at the implementation stage. We've got testing and training before we go live, but we are pretty confident at the moment that we will be able to go live December of 2026. I do have Brian here as well for any questions.
Any questions? Where's Corey and Derek when you need them?
I got a question.
Yeah.
I think, Jenna, do you want to go first? Okay, Corey? Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the things that with the RMS that we talked about early on was the potential to tie in, and I might be misremembering this, but it might just be a Westcom thing, but the potential to tie in the delay with the E911 calls and the transcripts. I was wondering if that's part of this project, or is that something that we're still considering? I don't recall where we left off on that status.
We are currently working with Solacom, who is our call handling equipment provider, to put in an interface with the Tyler CAD system. So that scope is still being worked out, but hopefully we will have something like that in the new system as the system goes live.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Jenna?
We had an email later in the day from Trustee Eater, so I'm just going to point to those questions around the whether or not. So it sounds like we're more or less on time or close to on time for the completion of the project, but what about budget? Going okay?
We're thankfully we are on budget as far as what we originally had thought for. The project was initially budgeted out to be split up between the three agencies, Oak Park, River Forest, and Forest Park. Now that's being split between 5 agencies with the addition of Elmwood Park and Rosemont, so that drove the cost a little bit further down. We also submitted a grant request to the state of Illinois at the beginning of the year. We were awarded $1.2 million in consolidation efforts, $286,000 going straight towards the CAD project, so further driving the cost down. So this is going to be a much lower cost capital investment than originally stated, and a much more technologically advanced system for all 5 communities.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Can we get like a updated, I don't know, updated budget for like what the savings look like?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Just to sort of,
Yeah,
as we go into the next season of budgeting, it'd be nice to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, and Brian has prepared recently a memorandum on that for all the jurisdictions to acknowledge what the anticipated savings is going to be with the consolidation, which is this project in and of itself that we're giving an update on tonight is a significant milestone for the village, but also the consolidation efforts are a significant milestone for the village, and it does result in a substantial savings from an operational standpoint that could be a consideration. We have things like the alternative call response, right, that's outstanding, among other things. And so, yeah, perfect question and timing, and yes, we can supply that information.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thank you, and thank you for sharing those. I didn't see Trustee Eater's questions, but congratulations on consolidating and bringing in 2 additional communities. I know how long you've been working on that, so it is, I'll second, that's a big deal.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? And thank you for your willingness to work with us on our desires for our community. And I hope on as tight of a timeline as possible, but I trust that work is happening. Thank you. All right. Then appreciate this update. Anything further? Otherwise, I just want to highlight the change on the September calendar.
Yeah, so just an update to the calendar. So if there are any questions, we'll take those questions. The other thing that I would acknowledge is that we have not yet scheduled the motion related to the advisory referendum concerning zoning changes. We anticipate, now that we have the actual motion, official motion, placing that on the agenda next week.
Next week.
Yes.
Thank you for letting the public know. And although I will not be here next week, Jim.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just making sure that the leader of the motion has a full board.
You can vote remotely.
And so Jim will, Trustee Enya, you'll be leading the meeting next Tuesday. Thank you. And so I did note that on September we made a change and added a meeting on the 22nd and extended the Labor Day holiday.
Yes.
Okay, so if that works for everybody, then we'll move forward. Okay. Is that all right? Yeah, it makes total sense to me, yeah. Any reports on village board committees? Okay. And I know that we're going to still hear from the collaboration very soon, at the end of the month. The Citizen Commission vacancies, the village clerk's office provides a vacancy report. Anyone interested in serving on a board or commission can email the clerk's office at clerk@oak-park.us. We do have a number of appointments. I would entertain a motion to consent to my appointments of in village Clerk Waters. Do you want to read those off, or I can?
Sure. Kristen Delarosa, appoint as a member to the Board of Health. Susan Riley, appoint as a commissioner to the Citizen Involvement Commission. Kurt Roskopf, reappoint as a commissioner to the Civic Information Systems Commission. And finally, but not least, Kelly Mitchell, appoint as a commissioner to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, thank you. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and I do thank you for all those that are serving on our boards and commissions. I do believe Susan Riley was here earlier, so sorry she didn't hear her name called out, but appreciate her willingness to serve on the Citizen Involvement Commission. And so now we'll move to the consent agenda, which is just one item. So I will read it out loud. A resolution amending the renewal of the annual software license and support maintenance agreements dated December 15, 2014 with CityView, a division of N. Harris Computer Corporation for the village's permitting, licensing, and inspection services in amount not to exceed $176,792.20. Motion, please.
So moved.
Okay, I heard motion by Trustee Strawn, seconded by Trustee Taglia. All in or Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
Trustee Eater, absent. Trustee Enya,
Yes.
Trustee Levin Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
and President Skaman.
Yes, and for out of courtesy to Trustee Eater, who could not join us this evening, he does continue to have questions or concerns on the CityView, so we'll be looking forward to discussing that further with renewal of a contract in the future.
Yes.
So on the regular agenda, first up is a motion by Trustee Taglia, seconded by Trustee Wesley, to review e-bike scooter regulations and recommend ordinance changes to improve safety, including seeking input from the Transportation Commission and Board of Health in advance of the study session. I do also see that the next motion is directly related, and so we will take those together, I presume. And so do I have a motion?
So
We
moved.
don't necessarily
Oh,
need
no.
the motion because it is as it is.
It's a discussion item.
And then, so entertain a motion to approve an ordinance amending the Oak Park Village Code regarding e-bikes, e-scooters, and motorized mobility devices. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Strawn, seconded by Trustee Enya. And now I'll turn it over to Village Manager Jackson to cover both.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, this has been a comprehensive effort that we've been working on for some time. We have multiple village departments that have been collaborating on this, including the village manager's office, police, health, communication, legal. And we're going to ask the Chief Johnson and the police department take the lead on this presentation, but all of those units are here available to answer any questions the village board is in response to the ordinance proposal related to the e-bikes. Chief Johnson.
Good evening, Shatanya Johnson, Chief of Police. Tonight, in collaboration with the Police Department, Health Department, as well as the Legal Department, we work together to provide the board with information to help you all make an informed decision on to regulate e-bikes in advance of the forthcoming legislation. Tonight, Deputy Chief Robinson will begin with this item. Thank you. I think it's up.
Good evening, Roderick Robinson, Deputy Chief, Oak Park Police Department. We're here to talk about e-bikes, e-scooters, and micro-mobility devices, which is obviously the hot topic across not only the village, but across the state right now. Just a little background information about e-bikes and why we're here today. There's been obviously an increase in e-bikes over the last couple years. This increase is not just one demographic, it's across the board, meaning with all age groups, old and young, children who are riding these e-bikes to school, adults riding them for work or riding them to work, Uber riders, things of that nature. The bikes and micro-mobility devices are seen everywhere now, everywhere across the village also. Specifically, we've had the ridership in D-Top and Hemingway District, a lot of the main streets such as Roosevelt, North Avenue, things like that, where we're consistently seeing these e-bikes. That led us to legislation. One of the people who really pushed this starting last year was Secretary of State Alexi Janulius, who brought a real big attention to the fact that there was need for increased regulation. So this led to a Senate Bill 3484, which it's in the Senate and has passed. It's on the desk of the governor for his signature. And this bill really provides stricter regulation for the classes of e-bikes and age restrictions and just everything involved with e-bike safety as far as e-bikes and micro-mobility devices. One thing of note, this bill that's sitting with the governor will preempt any local government regulation as far as these e-bikes and micro-mobility devices. As you can see on the screen, the classes are explained here as far as the Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and what it involves as far as the speed, also the pedal assist, and anything involving which has a motor also. A thing of note that at the end of this, at the last point on this slide, parents or guardians of any child shall not authorize or knowingly permit a child to violate the provisions of the law. Commission engagement. Myself and Tony Fioretti from the law department, we met with the commissions, and overwhelmingly, both commissions, the Board of Health and the Transportation Commission, supported this a new ordinance going into effect that would mirror the bill that's in the Senate and on the governor's desk. Specifically, the Transportation Commission wanted the education piece, a part of this bill, to really emphasize the class differences and the age restrictions that's involved with the ordinance and with the law and the safety precautions that go along with that. The Board of Health also was a staunch supporter of the bill and really wanted to go forward with an educational campaign that focused a lot on getting involved with the community stakeholders and the safety aspects of the bill and what the ordinance would bring as far as our staff recommendation. Enforcement, this is where the police department gets involved, and we've been involved with it already in the fact that our community policing officers, our RBOs, have held meetings, community meetings, and the topics in both meetings, pretty much in that hour-long meeting, range from about 45 minutes related to e-bikes and e-scooters and micro-mobility devices, how it'll affect the village and how this ordinance can affect the village and make it a lot safer. So pretty much our policing officers have started this campaign, this educational campaign, and it'll continue in through once this ordinance is hopefully approved and we can go forward as far as addressing the educational campaign in these districts, DTOP, Hemingway, and other areas of the village in which we have the high ridership. Enforcement will start with community service officers, really addressing the riding on the sidewalk and the safety aspects of minors and other individuals who ride these bikes in these areas. It'll extend to OPPD officers also focusing on the most egregious acts, and really enforcing these violations when we have accidents and things of that, or the most egregious acts, such as the high-speed riding and nighttime riding without lights, things of that nature. We'll also, with the police department, use our strategic intelligence manager to get as much data as possible and provide this data to the police officers so that weekly reports can be sent as far as we can deploy officers to areas we understand that this high ridership is happening and the violations are happening, so we can affect the campaign there, the enforcement there. The educational part, it's threefold in the fact that in-person has already started as far as our police officers and our community policing unit. Also at the commission meetings, the neighborhood meetings, any of these, all the festivals that we have. Online, our communications department has did a great job in putting things online and on our website. And you can go. Also the printed materials. Greg Olson can also attest and speak to the materials that we're putting out there, and we've been in constant communication as far as the education piece and the materials we have available.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Olson, Director of the Health Department. So there's a lot going on with this issue of e-bikes. There's different devices, different classes, speed limitations, age requirements. It's a lot to wrap your head around. But one thing that's easy to see are the risks that are associated with simply riding the devices. This has been a topic of discussion at our Board of Health meetings, and we've agreed that regardless of what the regulations are, regardless of when they're implemented, there needs to be something out there that communicates how to use these devices safely and to make people aware of the risks that are involved. So with that, our health education manager and our community health advisor got to work creating a safety campaign called E-Ride Ready. It worked with our awesome communications team and got a website up that has a lot of safety information. There's links to recent studies our Board of Health found that help put the actual risks in perspective. There's tips for drivers on how to navigate the roads while these people are on the devices, along with a couple questions for parents to think on if they're considering on getting one of these devices for their kids. But the main message of the campaign is simple. It's 5 ways to ride, or 5 ways to ride safely. Protect your head, be in the bike lane, follow the rules of the road, 1 rider per bike or scooter. I know we've all seen that being ignored. And finally, just knowing the risks. So the message has been made into various social media posts that are now being scheduled to be published and posted by our communications department. Communications is also going to be connecting with our community partners like schools, library, park district, the township to help push this message out to the community. Additionally, as DC Robinson mentioned, we'll have some printed brochures to hand out at neighborhood village events, along with we'll be providing a sort of a double-sided palm card for police to distribute while they're conducting their enforcement and education activities in the field. One side will be safety information, other side will be the rules, regulation info. So if anyone here, if you see any of our posts online, please feel free to share it. and like it and get the word out on how everyone can be safe with these devices.
Dan Yopchik, Chief Communications Officer. I don't have too much more to add than what Greg and DC Robinson already covered, but we do have a pretty thorough presence on our website that we're developing out. So you see here, there's two links, there's two web pages. The first one was built kind of earlier in the spring when the legislation was taking place to kind of spell out a little bit more about what the law says, what the different classes are, the age restrictions and those things. And then in June, toward the end of June, we worked with Sarah, Shelley, Greg, and the team on kind of producing that safety-centric page. There's links to those pages from each other. So we're really trying to promote the safety aspect, as Greg said. And then we did this week reach out to our colleagues in District 200, District 97, the township, the library, and the park district to encourage them to either share our messaging or kind of share their own messaging if they want to have a different look or feel to it, just about the importance of riding safely. So we have taken those steps and are hopeful that they're going to help us in getting that message out as well. So.
Okay, I do know Corey has some questions to contribute, but just want to make sure we don't have public comment. I know Christina Welters, the Chair of the Board of Health, and Jenna Holzberg, the Chair of the Transportation Commission, both had intended to provide comment, but I'll just at this point, not seeing them, thank them for their, yes? Oh, I don't know why, but the light is like interfering.
You're in the shadows.
You're in a, okay. So please, if you want, do you have any public comment or?
I think at this point we've said everything we would have said, so it's okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, which is what I was going to do next for, your work on and support of this. So Trustee Wesley.
Thank you, President Skaman. Yeah, I got a few questions on this. So the state law preempts any ordinance that we would pass, but the state law doesn't require a helmet. Does our current helmet law get preempted by the state law?
So, Trustee Wesley, Village Attorney Greg Smith here. The state law preempts the village in different ways with each type of device. And there's on the book preemption that the village, for instance, cannot require users operating motorcycles to wear headwear, is how the current state law reads. If there's an interest in the village board to further explore if the village has the option to require helmets, although state law does not, we can conduct that research, but there's a real spaghetti bowl of preemption language on this issue that makes it less than clear. My colleagues have advised me that the Secretary of State, as DC Robinson advised, proposed this bill. There's some surprise there was no helmet mandate in it. But in order to answer your specific question would require more work by the law department, which we're happy to perform. It's just a tricky issue to get an answer on.
Got it. Okay. I'll save my political comment on that for the end of my statement. So I heard Greg say that a couple things around in terms of safe usage of these devices. And one of them was be in the bike lane. The other one was protect your head. I guess I won't be saving my political comments. We have one protected bike lane is on Madison, and we can't mandate helmets. I fail to see how this law is supposed to be a safety law. It is quite annoying because I believe that the state should be creating a law that preempts the spaghettiness of all the various municipalities seeking to regulate e-devices, however you want to define them, right? There's numerous different categories, class 1, 2, and 3. None of this is aimed at providing rider safety. And that's the annoyance here. And not only is it not aimed at providing rider safety, it preempts us from actually providing rider safety. And I find that frustrating. Right. So as I sit here, we're contemplating a law that supposedly is about helping provide clarification for and safety for riders who are riding these devices. Yet we can't actually provide any safety for them from a helmet perspective, and we don't actually have any bike lanes. Only have one protected bike lane that we can actually direct them to ride in. So that's frustrating. So I'll move from there to ask, how do we plan to enforce this law? What my concern is that a lot of these devices are indistinguishable from each other. I know that some are, like when you get to the e-moto kind of device range, which is that 28 mile per hour plus range, then it becomes a little bit easier to distinguish visually, like what that is versus what an e-bike is that is class 1 or class 2. But it's really hard to distinguish. I'd say probably impossible in a lot of cases to distinguish the difference between a class 1 and a class 2 e-bike. And I'm curious how our police force plans to enforce this ordinance now that there will be age restrictions on who can ride what.
I think our first thing that we want to do is educate, and through the education campaign, we want to get in front of the enforcement. So getting in front of enforcement is making sure that parents and people of age who are riding these devices know the rules that are associated with e-bikes and e-scooters and micro-mobility devices. As far as our education campaign, we will start in these areas where we have the high ridership and educate as much as possible and safely do enforcement. And safe means that not chasing, not doing things of that nature, but educating from the start and trying to prevent any accidents or any other situations where these riders are doing egregious acts or riding in a unlawful way.
Okay. So I hear that, and respectfully, I'm going to push back. What I heard was we're going to police the behaviors of the devices, which I 100% agree with. My understanding is we can probably police those now based on current laws that are on the books, right? Like unsafe driving or unsafe usage of a mobility device on our streets now is likely illegal. Would that be correct in saying?
Yeah, we want to enforce or educate right now also. We don't want to wait. We want to ensure the safety of the riders and the residents and visitors of Oak Park. So that's not going to wait what we're going to do as far as what police action we take. So we've started that, and we'll continue to try to make the streets and the sidewalks and things, places around Oak Park safer through our policing.
No, definitely understand that, right? And that's appreciated. And I think, to the degree that folks are riding these class 1 or these e-mobility devices on our sidewalks especially, right? I think that's, that sort of thing is really easy for us to identify and to redirect, right? What I worry about is when I look at the class 1 restriction, it says that a kid must be 15 years of age or older. Like, to me, there's two dimensions there that are really hard to identify at a distance, right? One, how do you identify whether or not a kid is 15, right? And then two, how do you identify whether or not an e-bike is a class 1 or a class 2? And so what I wonder is, like, how once this is passed and once we get beyond the education phase, right? And ideally we would get 100% adherence and we wouldn't have to worry about this, right? But we don't live in a utopia, so I'm not going to pretend we do. Once we get to that point, how do we, like, what's our process there, right? Because when I think about like the speed limitations, right? Any class 1 less than 20 miles per hour. So a class 1 bike going like 22 is technically illegal. Are we going to radar the bikes to understand like how fast they're going, right? Like, we don't do that for cars now. So I have some concerns there around how we plan to actually enforce this in a way that is that doesn't create an undue burden both on the people who are riding these devices and on our police force, who are now being asked to distinguish the indistinguishable.
Trustee Wesley, your concerns are valid, and we would start with a preliminary investigation when we stop, which is just determining the age of the riders and then determining the speed by looking at the bikes and just being more informed on where to locate the different classifications for the bikes. As it relates to the speed, most police officers have a keen idea of speed, but again, we will work to train our officers in a manner so that we can enforce this ordinance as safely and as informed as possible so that we do not cause any type of undue harm to our riders, but specifically emphasizing safety is a priority. Only in the most egregious cases would we be actually stopping to try and enforce the law.
Got it. And I appreciate that, Chief. And you know, and I always believe that you guys keep safety and our community values at heart. I just have concerns that this law doesn't really put you guys in a really good position to enforce it. And so what I worry about is that it will take more resources to enforce anything on this law than it does to actually enforce traffic safety with cars, right? Which is, you know, what historically, you know, police forces have been trained to enforce against, right? Like 22 miles an hour in a car likely looks different than 22 miles an hour on an e-bike. And, you know, maybe 17 miles an hour on an e-bike might look like 22. I don't know, right? I don't have that. I don't have that knowledge, but that's one of my concerns, right? Is that it makes this job a lot harder for you all from that enforcement perspective. And so it then creates, for me, I don't want you all spending so much time on trying to you know, crack down on e-bike, you know, safety or e-bike enforcement, right? When the tools to do so aren't really available, and the people that we're enforcing against will largely be kids. And so that's really where my perspective on this kind of comes in. It's like I 100% agree like that this is necessary. That's why I seconded Trustee Taglia's motion. I think, you know, the regulation on this is necessary. I don't think the state gave us anything to work with, and that's my frustration, right? And I don't want to task our police force with again, trying to distinguish the indistinguishable. And I do appreciate the education forward posture on this, because I think that's important, because again, you know, most of the folks that will be riding these devices will be kids. So I think, you know, everything that we can do on education to limit the exposure or the encounters, I think is you know, definitely needed and necessary and appreciate it. How are we going to really kind of push out this education campaign? Is this going to be like website only? Are we doing postcards? Are we showing up at schools? Like, do we have a rollout plan for that?
Right now, Trustee Wesley, the plan primarily involves using social media, using the e-news, and using the OPFYI once kind of school resumes. We haven't quite gotten to the point yet of talking exact specifics or tactics with like the school districts and the library and those folks on how we can do that. We've just kind of, at this point, made the initial ask to have them help reinforce the message with us.
Got it. Okay, so I would submit this then for my colleagues. We're going to need some budget. I think what we need to do is really get out there to all of our schools, get out there to libraries, get out to all of our bike shops. We need to do like some kind of helmet giveaway, and during that helmet giveaway and all that interaction that we're doing at the schools and such, we're also providing that education material, and that we're getting in front of the parents where the kids are, and getting in front of riders where they are going, right? And really just trying to, we can't mandate helmets, but we can, I don't know, we can subsidize them, right? We can put the education in places where bikers will be. We can put the education in places where parents and kids will be, right? I think it's going to require a little bit more than social media and a little bit more than the e-news, even though I definitely appreciate those, right? I'm a digital first type of person. But I think in this case, right, when we're going to have to get just a lot more intensive and a lot more front line on this if we want to reduce enforcement by enhancing and creating education.
Okay, and then Christina Welter, the Chair of the Board of Health, you wanted to contribute further?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to echo that comment that you were just making about the outreach and engagement. I think we have a real opportunity here to not only be talking about e-rides, but to be just talking about bicycle safety, walking safety in Oak Park in general. And absolutely, this has to be on the ground with the schools, with the PTOs, PTAs, with our park districts. This is a real opportunity to combine across the commissions. Had we been speaking earlier with Commissioner Holzberg, that was what we were going to ask, is that we need a deep commitment right now. School's starting in basically tomorrow, and to get on the ground to communicate both this issue, but also other opportunity. My daughter was hit by a car this spring. My neighbor's kids were hit by cars. It's not just e-rides or e-bikes. While those are super important here, I think I love some of the suggestions you made for the budget with, subsidized helmets or whatever we can do in outreach. So just wanted to echo that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so who's Brian, I think, and then Jim.
I'm not going to repeat, but I agree with most of what Trustee Wesley said. I think that I'm absolutely in support of enacting this early, and I understand it. It will then roll off as the state measure takes effect. Our focus between now and when the state measure takes effect, I think, should be on education, not on enforcement, because the draft measure I see, it takes effect immediately as soon as we vote, and there's not yet been education. I think a postcard, not in FYI, makes some sense. Something that actually will get folks' attention, because I think we've seen how effective postcards can be in actually getting a message out, and so I think that would be valuable, because I'm a huge proponent of cycling, and I think that there is space for appropriate e-micromobility use, and at the same time, this morning I saw a 10-year-old keeping pace with traffic on Ridgeland on what had to have been something along the lines of an e-moto or a Class 3 cycle, for it to be keeping pace with traffic on Ridgeland without any pedaling happening, and not just keeping pace with traffic, but weaving through traffic. And it's the data is clear that there's a much higher risk of head trauma because the risk of serious injury increases dramatically with increased speeds. And one of the wonderful things about a normal bicycle is, as you're younger, you can only ride so fast. And as your capacity for control and processing the situation around you increases, so does your speed naturally. And so I think that's something that this ordinance takes into effect. But I think the focus on any interactions with individuals in the community and through both a digital campaign And a postcard campaign should be on education, so people know what the ordinance is and have time to change their behavior before the state law comes into effect. And I think partnering with the schools as well is going to be an incredibly important way to get those communications out there. I would love to see a proposal come forward in the future for how we can pair an education campaign with helmet giveaways where folks might not have, might need that assistance. So I'm happy to consider options there if there's capacity to be doing education in schools that includes that.
Thank you. I'll just be a couple questions I want to start off with. And to Brian's point, education versus enforcement, and Corey's point too. Currently, regardless, parents or guardians of children, that as the one Brian mentioned, the 10-year-old, was that person wearing a helmet, by the way, this morning? I'm just curious. Yeah, okay. So a lot of them are running around with no helmets. Obviously, that's not a requirement, but parents are liable, are they not? They're responsible. If a child of 10 years old were to number one, cause some sort of infraction or a problem, they're legally responsible. Am I wrong? Is that correct? Can someone answer?
Yeah, under current state law, parents of a child may not authorize or knowingly permit that child to violate any part of the vehicle code, which is where all this state regulation will live. So, yes, as of the first of the year, that state law will encompass civil liability for children whose parents knowingly allow them to use mobility devices.
Right, like the parents of that 10-year-old Brian saw. I mean, these parents are dummies letting their kids run around on these motorized vehicles. And I think that they should be held accountable and they should be ticketed. Now, talking about enforcement, there's an example I totally support. Go after these parents. That's wrong. Because it also goes to the sidewalk thing where we see it everywhere. Now, the requirement right now in the village is for a bicycle, how old is it? You have to be, is it 12 or 14? You're allowed to ride on a sidewalk, correct?
15, I believe, or 15.
Is it 15? Well, I see adults riding on sidewalk with these e-bikes. That's illegal now. They should be ticketed now. And I've asked before, I think about a year ago, and the village hadn't written any tickets for any electronic bicycles at that point, quite a while ago. But I do want to see enforcement in those things, because those are things that are absolutely affecting the safety of all residents. I just have a few comments. Some of this is repeated, so I apologize. I'd written this. So the draft the draft ordinance does provide greater degree of regulation, as we've discussed. And assuming the statewide legislation becomes law, I support its immediate adoption. I'm deeply concerned with what's happening in the village, and it's not a debate of cars versus bikes versus e-bikes. What I see daily are e-bikes and e-scooters routinely ignoring stop signs way more often than adhering and following a stop sign or stopping at a stop. They go right through it. Stop lights and riding on sidewalks. That's the norm. That's not the exception. That's the norm. And I see that from children and adults all over the village. A couple of months ago on Lake Street, I was almost hit by an e-bike, and I'm pretty careful. One came from a block away, and they approached, and I was trying to get out of the way, and it didn't hit me, but it came very, very close. And, and I've gotten, as was mentioned earlier, there have been, we all have heard from residents that, oh, my daughter was hit, or I was hit, or I saw someone hit, or this is a common refrain over and over. So many people have been hit. So it's really chaos. It's dangerous. It has to stop. And obviously, I think when I'm speaking, I can say this on behalf of the board, on behalf of Trustee Wesley, of course. that we support this. The Transportation Commission supports it, the Board of Health, DEI Department, Neighborhood Services, Police Department, first responders, everyone, no one disagrees. All residents were fed up. We want to see some measure of control over what's becoming an increasingly dangerous situation. And as I've said before, unfortunately, I'm afraid someone's going to get seriously injured or worse in our village. And we've had issues that the public may not even be aware of, where people have been injured. Little children, 3-year-old girl went to the hospital riding on an e-scooter. So I thank the Transportation Commission, the Board of Health, and for the input on this draft ordinance. And again, we are, the helmet situation is a concern. We're not able to make that a law, but I know it is going to be a message that is passed through the Health Department and the Office of Communications and Engagement to strongly encourage the use of helmets, and I'm all for that, and any program that can put more helmets in kids' hands, I'm all for that also. I'm glad we will be collaborating with District 97, 200, the library, and the Park District in the future when we get to that, and hopefully it'll be soon. And I'm not particularly excited about, no disrespect to the police, but you know, we don't have a patrol division anymore. We're still short-staffed, and we're tasking our department with what is really a complex situation. I think there are easy things to enforce and to, such as parents that are letting their little kids out of these things, and when we see the violations on the sidewalks, which is incredibly dangerous, especially in a business district, that's what I'm most concerned about, because that's where a lot of people walk, and you come out of a business and then you get hit. So I do think that I lean toward education, more education. That's where this is, the benefit is going to be, and I support that, and I think I'm in sync with everyone else here, including Trustee Wesley's not on camera, but we all are in agreement so far. So thank you. That's everything I have to offer.
Brian. Oh, I'm sorry, then Jenna.
I want to clarify that I am in agreement with the ordinance. I am in agreement with education. I am not in agreement with us moving forward with enforcement where we are stopping kids, working on identifying who their parents are, detaining them while we can identify who their parents are so that we can ticket their parents. I think that that's a recipe to lead to bad interactions, that it's going to be difficult to quickly identify an individual's parents. I don't agree with that approach, and so I am fully in favor of the ordinance, fully in favor of a multi-pronged, aggressive education campaign. So long as that's the focus. If the focus is going to be on aggressive enforcement, where we are stopping and detaining children while we can identify parents to ticket parents, rather than maybe stopping a person on one of these e-motos to hand them some education and let them know, like, in the future this will be a ticketable offense, and you should be forewarned. Those are two very different things, and if we're going to be moving to an aggressive enforcement campaign, that would actually flip my vote from a yes to a no on this.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know a lot of work has gone into preparing the ordinance, preparing the early phases of education, all of our departments and the Board of Health and Transportation Commission. So, it's a scary thing, the stats and the data that shows how dangerous they are. It's scary, but it's really kind of impressive to see just sort of how collaborative our approach has been. I would like to explore anything we can do around helmets. I know sorry that it's like a spaghetti bowl of legal complications, but I think if that is an intervention, and even if it's just, like the Trustee Wesley's suggestion of subsidizing and then handing them out with the education campaign materials, I think that's good, especially to Dr. Walter's point, that we think of this as more comprehensive safety, because still cars are still the most dangerous vehicle on the road, right? So if we're also incorporating bike safety along with the e-mobility messaging, I think that's going to be a net positive. So interested in what we can do more to encourage helmet wearing, and just like the consistent intentional publication engagement. I know it's been said, but I'm going to underscore it because I think being forward with that. I wonder too, in terms of community partners, I know there's not an agreement on like the value of e-bikes in the community, but Bike Walk Oak Park does have a pretty strong organizing presence, and so partnering with them just with our messaging, that would be good. And I'm also curious about driver's ed programs. I know 15, but like the permit and the license requirements, that also might be a partnership worth exploring. There's the D200 has it. I assume Fenwick has driver's education. I share some of the concerns around enforcement, so I appreciate the comments that have been made around it already. I'll try not to repeat too much, but I did look at NACTO and if they have any clarity around enforcing bike safety laws, especially around the racial disparities we know exist in pedestrian stops and traffic stops. There's not a ton of data because it's not required in any like national level, like in any consistent way. But there is some research, and then specifically in Chicago, that found people riding a bike in Black neighborhoods receive twice as many tickets as those on a bike in white or Latinx communities. Chicago neighborhoods that are most ticketed are those with the least sufficient bike infrastructure, which I think connects to what Trustee Wesley was saying and is another reason to continue to support our investment in bike infrastructure. I know it's not been the easiest thing for our community to tolerate in some areas, but it's another level of the importance of that investment is this area of safety. I'll just mention that one of the articles I saw, or one of the articles the NACTO data took from is from a researcher who wrote about the title of the piece is Biking While Black. And so it's a few years old, but it does show confirmation that bike tickets issued in Black neighborhoods are 3 times as high as Latinx neighborhoods and 8 times as high as white neighborhoods. And this is Chicago. So, yeah, we know pervasive racial disparities exist, and I don't want to reinforce those in other interactions that we have. So to echo Trustee Straw's point, to not be enforcement forward in this, and to be much more education and prevention forward, I think is almost always a good approach, but especially on this. I would also ask, you mentioned that you're going to start collecting data around this. If we could see that information, I think that would be helpful as rollout of the ordinance and then eventually the state law, although it hasn't been signed, and I think he only has, I don't know how many more days or weeks to sign it. So we might be in a different position if it doesn't get, we're basing a lot on that assumption, which I think is fine. I have one specific question on the ordinance language, or not the language, but kind of how we're going to implement. Page 5, item F, the signs or markings to be posted on any highway, bike lane, path, shared use path, off-road, et cetera, designed for bicycle use and other bicycle-specific facility. Do we have plans for signage on any of our streets or, I mean, it sounds like the business districts are the most like sort of impacted and if that would be the place to start physical signage, I'm curious.
Tony Fioretti, Assistant Village Attorney. That provision is for bike-only lanes as to whether or not we wanted to restrict some of those e-motos from the bike lanes themselves. They are otherwise prohibited from sidewalks, and we don't need a sign necessarily on the sidewalk to say you can't be on the sidewalk with those. That's already going to be illegal under the state law and the ordinance. We do signage as a community education measure in terms of where you can and can't have those, but it's not like parking where you need a designated sign in order for it to be illegal in that area.
But do we want to do some signage to reinforce our safety message?
I think that's going to be up to the Public Works Department and Transportation Commission on where you want those in the bike plans.
Yeah, absolutely. So Trustee Levy-Jack said we will look into that and identify any opportunities to further educate through signage.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, and it's just a curiosity more than a specific ask that we do that. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, this is a safety concern. I'm supportive, and again, just to focus on the prevention.
Trustee Anya, I don't know, do you have additional comments?
Yeah, I'll try not to repeat. I'm grateful for the the attempt to make sure that we're keeping riders safe in Oak Park. I think it's something you continuously see. You know, I got mine right after I got elected. I got a Rad Runner bike that I ride around town in to try to save on some gas when I can, and it's not like 99 degrees out. But one of the things that, my parents who, had chipped in on a large portion of this bike told me I had to wear my helmet. So, I tell the same thing to my kids. And the safety of it is not just necessarily because you don't trust your own skills, it's because you don't know what could possibly happen. The day I let my son borrow it the first time to go to basketball practice at the high school, and he was driving back, car made a quick turn at the gas station on Madison and Ridgeland and just didn't see him, didn't see my son, and got cuts all over, flew over the bike, kept his hand on the throttle by accident, and it whipped him around. He had scars on his back, on his shoulders, all this kind of stuff. And I said, AJ, did you have the helmet on? And he said, no, I, just got out of practice and it was the last thing on my mind. And I said, you were so lucky that it was a slow moving accident, that you were, not more seriously injured. I know it's not your fault, but the helmet doesn't know that. Not having that on is putting yourself at a huge risk. And I want there to be a level of enforcement, but I don't want it to be predatory towards people. I want people just to know to be safe because we want them to make it home safely that day. And like the bike that I have, there's a modifier on that bike, and all you got to do is turn a thing and it goes from 20 to 25 miles an hour. So there's all of those things to say that we want our kids to be safe. And I know as a kid, when I first got my BMX bike, the first thing that I did was learn how to pop this wheelie, right? It was the coolest thing because everyone where I lived on my side of Oak Park, more towards the Austin area, all of us could pop wheelies, but I could never keep my bike going too long on this wheelie. And now what I'm seeing is kids can do this on e-bikes. And I don't think people realize how dangerous that is when you're going 20-something miles an hour. Yes, it's not a motorcycle, but you're still holding up close to 70 pounds. If you got my bike, if you got other bikes, it's still heavy weight, and they can do this for like blocks. So I watched a kid do this in front of the high school at the stadium all the way down Lake Street till he got to Starbucks. And I said, this is insane, that this kid's being this unsafe. Like, I get it. It probably looks super cool to the kid who was taking a picture, but to traffic who is trying to weave around a kid who is riding on an e-bike that's on a wheelie, you're more concerned about how is this person going to land and if they're going to be okay. And I don't think it's fair to the riders or to the parents who probably don't know that their kid is popping wheelies on a street that cars are moving by and weaving around them. So I think the safety aspect is huge. I, agree that we need to push it a little bit further just to make sure people understand, hey, I'm not saying we're going to chase you down and, take your parents to jail, but I do think that we want you to know that safety is our main concern for you when you're on the street and the safety of others. I've seen the similar to Trustee Taglia, people on sidewalks with that bike. If you're not of the age to even be on the sidewalk, I have no idea why you think that that's safe, because most people aren't looking for a kid who's driving 20 miles on a bike when they're walking out of their door and heading to their car. That's what I'm more concerned with, is the person who didn't know, and then their life is upended because you don't know how hard that impact will impact them in the future. So, super supportive of this. Thank you for bringing this to us. I know that you all are going to do your best to make sure people are staying safe on the street, and it's not an easy job. I completely understand, but I'm super excited to see that all levels, of staff and our commissions were working together and wanting to see something implemented to help our community. So I'm 100% supportive of it.
I just wanted to kind of follow up on that and just say that our education, our enforcement is to enhance safety. All of that, our enforcement is really just to keep everyone safe, whether it's the riders, the citizens, anything of that nature, to keep everyone out of harm's way.
Trustee Taglia, and then I'm going to quickly ask for a motion to extend beyond.
So I was just going to add to Brian's comment that might have been maybe a little misinterpreted, and maybe that's the way I said it. I'm not for strong enforcement on this at all. I don't think we have the capability at this time, nor should we really spend our efforts chasing down 10-year-olds. However, I will make it clear that if a 10-year-old or a child, you wouldn't know their age, went by and went through a red light in front of a police officer, and that I would expect and hope that the police would investigate that, pull that child, young adult over, and if it turned out that that child or the young adult was underage, that I believe that certainly a warning or a ticket should be issued to the parents. They're responsible, they're liable, and they have to be aware. They're putting their children in they don't realize it, apparently. They're putting their children in a very unsafe environment. And I don't want to seek out, profile, or cause trauma to little kids. But again, if they're doing something wrong and it's considered against the rules or illegal, as we would say, against the ordinance, it should go to the parents ultimately. If in fact the police decided to write a ticket at all, it's their discretion. But somebody needs to, if you ignore it and count only on education 100% and don't give that 5% when needed, a lot of kids will never learn the difference, and it won't matter, and they'll end up getting hurt. And anyway, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we also have called to the board. Otherwise, I would hope we could close, but I'll entertain a motion to go beyond 10 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, so then I'll close this out with the.
I have one quick question, Vicki. Sorry.
No, please go.
So Jenna made a point about the fact that the law hasn't been signed yet, and that's true. What happens if the law ultimately is not passed, right? If Pritzker ultimately does not sign it into law, which I think is, unlikely, but I guess still possible. I wouldn't want to adopt this law mirroring that law if that law is not going into effect. So do we have a pathway for that with this?
So what's the timeline?
Yeah, so the law was sent, Senate Bill 3484 was sent to the governor on June 30th. He has 60 days from then to either sign it into law do nothing and let it become law, or veto it. So the only way it doesn't become law is if he vetoes it. It goes back to the General Assembly and they can override the veto with a supermajority vote. But let's say, Trustee Wesley, under your hypothetical, he vetoes it and the General Assembly doesn't make it law regardless of the veto. In that case, then, if the village board approves this ordinance tonight, but then there is no superseding state law that takes effect as of January 1 of 2027, then the village board could look at what is the best policy for the regulation of these devices. If it differs from what you approved tonight, you make amendments to it. Presumably you lift off the automatic repeal provision so that it would continue into 2027.
Okay, I appreciate that, Greg. Thank you. So I will just state that if the state law does not become law, and this law if we do pass it this law tonight, that I will be making a motion to amend this or repeal this and start over from scratch if that happens.
All right, well said. Okay, so, thank you for bringing forward the ordinance immediately with the motion by Trustee Taglia and Trustee Wesley, to host this conversation. And thank you to the Transportation Commission and everyone involved, the Board of Health, all the different departments, and the collaboration is much appreciated. It is tough because we got to imagine that most parents do understand this is dangerous, and why they're making the choice to purchase these for very small children is, challenging in itself. So we do have an advantage, though, in that this state law has received a lot of publicity in itself. We started tonight's conversation, Deputy Chief Robinson said, this is a state conversation at this point. And we also know that young people are riding on sidewalks because they don't feel safe on the streets. So, obviously, and I trust we wouldn't be looking to pull them over just to pull them over, right? But then, there are times when the situation is one where you might have to redirect a young person because they are putting themselves in harm's way or others, particularly in congested areas like downtown Oak Park or on Oak Park Avenue. And I do support signs in those places because that, social influence can have an impact when you are riding a bike on a sidewalk right past a sign that says no sidewalks or no bikes and motorized vehicles on sidewalks. I do support very much the giveaways and trainings that are rules of the road as well. And working with the Park District. We've talked about a lot of collaboration, but I think, where are young people going on these, when they're on these devices or these motorized bicycles? And so, those coaches and Park District places, I think, are where we need, it's not just the education, obviously, that this law exists, but the rules of the road and the safety element of it. And so, but, it's probably way overdue, and it's still going to be a challenge. So, Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Leving-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
And President Skyman?
Yes. I do think we should have an annual rules of the road thing. That gets publicity all in itself. So, okay. If it's something regular and
Does the
consistent.
township do the giveaway? The township has like a giveaway.
The township? Well, they do backpack giveaways before school starts. The township does. I know Forest Park has always had a rules of the road carnival kind of event that's gained a lot of publicity. And then that, and people start to count on it then, you know?
Yeah.
And they take their kids as they've just learned how to ride to those things, and yeah. And then you've got the different Facebook groups too, the kid,
The one where that was just in here.
yeah.
The writing group, so.
All right. So, very good. Since we've tabled the last agenda item, I would call to board and Clerk Waters.
Pass.
Trustee.
Pass.
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 Trustee Wesley?
I won't pass. I got a couple things. So what? I'll be quick though. What I do want to say is that we've talked a lot about e-bikes and biking as a whole in terms of enforcement and education and kind of from a punitive standpoint. But I think we also need to look at biking and e-bikes and the whole category as an opportunity. And so we haven't had very much conversation around that. But I think this is a sea change, right, in the way that people use transportation, and we are in a village that is set up to make using alternative forms of travel. When I say alternative, I mean non-car forms of travel, very successful if we build out the infrastructure. And so what I want to challenge us to do is to really think about the opportunities that we have based on the technology advancements that have come into pass, and also the renewed focus on biking that we're seeing in our community and just across the country. How can we take all of those things and use them to better our community and really increase the value of our community, that we, in a way that can just, again, out into the future, just kind of live on, right? I think we don't focus enough on viewing biking, e-bikes, whatever, alternate mobility as opportunities for economic development and transportation and sustainability and all of these things, and how all of these things kind of interact. And I just want us to challenge us to look at all of this through that lens as well, while we're looking at it through an enforcement and a punitive lens.
Yeah, so fully supportive of continuing the investment in bikes infrastructure. I realize we've got lots of budget conversations to have, but also I have been seeing a lot that there's a need for more bike racks just about everywhere. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.